She knew that the future of both humans and aliens depended on her ability to navigate the storm that was brewing ahead. The galaxy had known peace for too long, and now it was time to confront the challenges that lay ahead. The shadows of war loomed large, threatening to engulf everything they had worked for. After the shocking attack on the Kexar colony, the once joyous atmosphere of the Galactic Council had shifted to one filled with fear and uncertainty. The Grand Hall, which had just celebrated 3,000 years of peace, now echoed with anxious whispers and worried faces. Delegates from various races debated fiercely about what actions to take next. Ambassador Sarah Ellman watched as the council struggled to respond. She felt a knot of worry in her stomach. If they did not act wisely, the fragile peace could slip away. Humans had worked hard to build their reputation in the galaxy, and now that reputation was on the line. Sarah stood up, her voice steady as she addressed the gathering. "We cannot let this act of aggression define us," she urged. "We must investigate who is behind this attack and respond with calm and reason." Some delegates nodded in agreement, while others remained skeptical. In the corner of the room, Xylor, the Grand Chancellor, exchanged worried glances with his closest advisors. "What if this is just the beginning?" one advisor whispered. "What if there are more attacks to come?" Xylor frowned, feeling the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. Back on Earth, news of the attack spread like wildfire. The media fueled fears, and social media exploded with reactions. Many humans were furious. "We should retaliate!" shouted one man during a public debate. "They attacked us. We cannot let them get away with this." But there were others who urged caution. A prominent scientist spoke on a live broadcast, saying, "We must know who did this before we jump to conclusions. We could be making a mistake." His words struck a chord, but the anger in the hearts of many was hard to contain. Meanwhile, Liam, the young prodigy, felt a burning desire to do something. He could not understand how anyone could attack innocent people. He spent hours in the library, poring over ancient texts about warfare, strategy, and peace. He wanted to find a way to help, to bring about a solution rather than a fight. But he felt small and powerless against the tide of anger and fear. As the days passed, tensions continued to rise. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting to address the situation. Sarah was determined to attend and voice her concerns. She wanted to remind everyone of the good they had accomplished together over the centuries. At the meeting, the room was filled with a tense energy. Delegates argued about military responses, each one trying to prove their point. "We must send a fleet to Kexar," shouted a delegate from a fierce warrior race. "Show them that we will not be weak." But Sarah stood up again, her voice ringing clear. "If we respond with anger, we will lose everything we have built. We must gather information first. We need to understand who attacked us and why." Xylor nodded thoughtfully. "Ambassador Ellman is right. We cannot let fear guide our actions. We need to be smart about this." But not everyone was convinced. Whispers of war began to spread through the council like a dark cloud. Meanwhile, on Kexar, survivors of the attack were struggling to rebuild their lives. They shared their stories of fear and loss. "We saw ships firing at us and we had no time to escape," one woman recounted, tears in her eyes. "We just want to live in peace." Their voices resonated across the galaxy, reminding everyone of what was at stake. War would bring suffering and pain to countless innocents. In a hidden part of the galaxy, a group of rebels watched the situation unfold with keen interest. They had their own plans to exploit the chaos and take advantage of the Council's distraction. "Now is our time," their leader declared. "The Council is weak. We must strike while they are divided." Back at the Council, Sarah and Xylor worked tirelessly to gather allies and information. They reached out to other alien races, seeking support and insights. They wanted to understand the true nature of the threat. As the sun set on Earth, a sense of unease hung in the air. The galaxy was on the brink of something big, and the choices made in the coming days would determine its future. Would they find a way to maintain the peace that had lasted for 3,000 years? Or would they fall into the trap of war? The tensions continued to rise, leaving everyone on edge, as uncertainty loomed over the galaxy like a storm cloud waiting to burst. As the days turned into weeks, the tension within the Galactic Council reached a boiling point. Delegates argued fiercely, their voices rising as they debated the best course of action against the unknown attackers. The atmosphere was thick with fear, and uncertainty hung over the Council like a dark shadow. Finally, after many long discussions, The Grand Chancellor, Xylor, decided it was time to take a firm stand. He called for an emergency meeting, stating that they needed to send a clear message to those responsible for the Kexar attack. As the delegates gathered in the Grand Hall, the air was charged with anticipation. "Today we face a critical moment," Xylor began, his deep voice resonating through the hall. "We must show that the Galactic Council will not tolerate violence against any member race, especially against our human allies. We will issue an ultimatum to the attackers: surrender immediately or face the consequences." A murmur of agreement swept through the room. Sarah Ellman felt a mix of pride and concern. While she understood the need for strength, she worried that issuing an ultimatum could escalate the situation further. She stood up to voice her thoughts. "Chancellor, while I agree we must defend our colonies, an ultimatum could provoke more violence. We don't even know who attacked Kexar. We need more information before making such a bold move." Xylor looked at Sarah, considering her words. "Your caution is noted, Ambassador. But if we wait too long, we risk appearing weak. Our unity is our strength, and we must protect it." The council debated fiercely, each delegate voicing their opinions on how best to respond. Some were eager for immediate action, while others supported Sarah's call for caution. Tensions escalated as opposing factions began to clash. In the corner of the hall, Liam sat quietly, absorbing the heated discussions around him. He admired Sarah's bravery, but also felt a growing urgency. He knew that peace depended on careful communication, not threats. As a young strategist, he wondered if he could help. "Maybe there's another way," he thought. "If I can get more information, perhaps I can help prevent this ultimatum." While the council debated, Liam slipped out of the Grand Hall and made his way to the archives. He knew there were old records of past conflicts, along with insights into other alien races' motives. He hoped to find clues about who might be behind the attack. Back in the hall, Xylor continued to address the delegates. "We will give the attackers 24 hours to respond. If they do not surrender, we will assemble a fleet to confront them. The message must be clear: the Galactic Council will not back down." As the ultimatum was announced, the room erupted in cheers from those who supported a show of force. Yet Sarah's heart sank. She feared that this decision could lead to an all-out war. Meanwhile, Liam scoured the records, feeling the weight of time slipping away. He found a section detailing a group known as the Vexari, a rogue faction known for causing chaos. They had a history of attacking peaceful colonies to gain power and influence. Excitement surged through him. Could this be the group responsible for the Kexar attack? He wondered. With newfound determination, he decided to bring this information to Sarah. Rushing back to the Grand Hall, Liam pushed through the crowd of delegates and approached Sarah just as the meeting was concluding. "Ambassador Ellman," he called, his voice steady but urgent. "I think I found something important about the attack. It might be the Vexari who are behind it." Sarah turned to Liam, surprised but intrigued. "The Vexari? Tell me more." Liam quickly explained what he had discovered, detailing the group's history and their pattern of attacking peaceful planets. Sarah listened intently, realizing this information could change everything. "Thank you, Liam. This could be the key to understanding the attackers," she said. "But we need to present this to the council quickly before they make their final decision." With time running out, Sarah rushed to gather the council members. She hoped to convince them to reconsider the ultimatum and focus their efforts on understanding the Vexari. As she prepared to speak, the weight of the galaxy's future rested heavily on her shoulders. Would they listen to her plea, or was war now inevitable? In that moment, Sarah knew that the next steps would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of peace in the galaxy itself. The atmosphere in the Galactic Council Hall was tense as Sarah Ellman stood before the gathered delegates, her heart racing. She had only moments to convince them that the Vexari were behind the Kexar attack, but she felt a spark of hope. "Please listen," she urged, her voice steady. "We cannot act on anger. We must confirm who the true enemy is before we escalate this situation." As she spoke, the room buzzed with murmurs. Some delegates nodded in agreement, while others remained skeptical. Xylor, the Grand Chancellor, leaned forward, a mix of curiosity and concern on his face. "Ambassador Ellman, do you have evidence to support this claim?" "Yes," Liam chimed in, stepping beside Sarah. "I found records of the Vexari's previous attacks on peaceful colonies. They thrive on chaos and use fear to gain control. The room grew quiet as delegates considered this new information. Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. If we act quickly, we can prevent a full-scale war. We need to send a team to gather more intelligence on the Vexari and confirm their involvement. If we attack without proof, we risk becoming the villains ourselves. Some delegates were swayed by her argument. We cannot risk another attack, one of them stated. If the Vexari are behind this, we must know before we act. But a faction within the council was already set on war. We gave the attackers our ultimatum and they ignored it, shouted a fierce delegate from the warrior race, pounding his fist on the table. We cannot show weakness. We must strike now. The room erupted into chaos as arguments broke out. Sarah felt a sinking feeling in her stomach. She feared they would choose war over wisdom. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the council chamber, cutting through the heated discussions. A holographic image of a Vexari warship appeared in the center of the room. The craft was dark and menacing, a clear sign that they had come to challenge the council. Look! Shouted one delegate, pointing at the image. The Vexari have come to attack us. Xyler stood, his voice booming. All council members to your stations. We must prepare for battle. The hall was filled with shouts and the sound of rushing feet as delegates raced to their posts. Sarah felt panic rise in her chest. This was not how it was supposed to go. They were about to make a grave mistake. On the surface of Earth, news of the impending war spread quickly. Citizens gathered in the streets, some waving flags in support of the council, while others shouted for peace. Liam stood among them, feeling the weight of uncertainty on his shoulders. He knew this war would change everything, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading toward disaster. As the Galactic Council's fleet assembled, the mood was grim. Starships filled the skies, engines roaring to life. Soldiers prepared for battle, and the council members took their places at the command center. Sarah stood alongside Xyler, her heart heavy. Chancellor, we can't do this, she pleaded. We need more time to gather evidence about the Vexari. If we attack now, we may be playing into their hands. Xyler looked at her, his expression resolute. If we do nothing, we risk our reputation. The council's unity depends on our strength. We cannot back down. The fleet received orders, and the warship set off into the depths of space. As they entered the coordinates where the Vexari warship had been seen, tension crackled through the command center. The crew members were on high alert, knowing that one wrong move could lead to catastrophe. Meanwhile, in the dark void of space, the Vexari ship waited, cloaked in shadows. Inside, the Vexari leader, a tall and imposing figure named Zareth, watched the council fleet approach. A wicked smile spread across his face. Let them come, he sneered. They will fall into our trap. Back on Earth, Liam refused to give up. He spent hours researching, determined to find any information that could help the council. If we could just show them who the real enemy is, maybe we can stop this war, he thought. As the council fleet drew closer, Sarah prepared to address the crew. We need to remain calm and follow our protocols, she said. We will avoid confrontation if possible. Remember, our goal is to gather information, not to engage in war. But as they neared the Vexari ship, alarms blared once more. Incoming fire! A crew member shouted. The council fleet had fallen into a trap. Blasts of energy surged through space, striking the first ship in line. Chaos erupted as ships were hit and crew members scrambled to respond. The war had begun. In that moment, Sarah's heart sank. The fight for peace had turned into a battle for survival, and the consequences would be felt across the galaxy for generations to come. The chaos of battle raged around Sarah Elman as the council fleet faced the Vexari onslaught. Alarms blared, and explosions lit up the dark void of space, painting the scene with bursts of color and destruction. Sarah felt her heart pounding in her chest as she stood on the bridge of the flagship, trying to keep her thoughts clear amid the turmoil. "Status report!" shouted Grand Chancellor Xyler, his voice barely cutting through the din. The crew scrambled to respond, their fingers flying over control panels. "Shields at 70%, Chancellor! We've lost 2 ships already, and the Vexari are closing in fast," a technician shouted back. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Xyler commanded, his face a mask of determination. He glanced at Sarah, who was staring at the chaotic scene unfolding outside the viewport. "Ambassador, can you find a way to contact the Vexari? We may need to negotiate a truce." "I'll try," Sarah replied, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She turned to her console, frantically searching for a communication channel. The Vexari ships danced around them, firing volley after volley, and she knew time was running out. Meanwhile, on the Vexari flagship, Zareth watched the battle unfold with glee. "Let them feel the fury of the Vexari," he shouted, urging his crew to press the attack. "We will show the Council that they are weak. We will take their power and make them bow before us." The Vexari ships darted through space like angry hornets, unleashing destructive energy blasts on the Council fleet. One by one, Council ships fell to the onslaught, and the crew fought desperately to defend their home. Back on the Council flagship, Sarah finally found a channel. "This is Ambassador Sarah Ellman of the Galactic Council. We wish to negotiate a ceasefire," she transmitted, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Zareth's cold laughter echoed in response. "Negotiate? You think you can save your precious Council now? You are outnumbered and outmatched! We will crush you!" Sarah's heart sank. "We don't want war! We can find a way to resolve this peacefully," she pleaded. But Zareth had made his choice. "Your time is over, Ambassador. Prepare to face the consequences of your arrogance." He signaled his ships to intensify their attack. In the command center, Liam watched in horror as explosions erupted around them. The situation seemed hopeless, but he refused to give up. "We have to regroup and come up with a new plan," he said, turning to Sarah. "If we can create a distraction, maybe we can escape and find a way to communicate with other factions for help." Sarah nodded, her mind racing. "You're right. If we can get some of the remaining ships to pull back and create a diversion, it might buy us time to regroup and rethink our approach." With newfound determination, Sarah and Liam quickly began to organize a retreat. They instructed a few ships to form a defensive line, drawing the Vexari's attention while the rest of the fleet pulled back to safety. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. As the Council ships maneuvered into formation, the remaining crew members held their breath. Would their strategy work? Or would they fall victim to the relentless assault of the Vexari? "Now," Sarah shouted as the ships moved into position. Energy blasts flew past them, but the defensive line held firm. The remaining ships formed a protective barrier around the retreating vessels, allowing them to escape the battlefield. As they fell back, Sarah felt a rush of hope. "We did it! We managed to pull back," she said, turning to Liam with a smile. But their victory was short-lived. Suddenly, a powerful blast struck the flagship's engines, causing the ship to shudder violently. Crew members fell to the ground, and alarms blared once more. "We've lost power!" a technician shouted. "We can't move!" Realizing they were now a target, Sarah and Liam rushed to the command center. "We have to fix this," Liam exclaimed, scrambling to assess the damage. They worked furiously, trying to restore power and regain control. Meanwhile, Zareth's voice echoed through the ship's intercom. "You cannot escape! Your failure is near. Prepare to meet your end." With time slipping away, Sarah had an idea. What if we use the ship's self-destruct sequence to create a distraction? She proposed, her heart racing. "We can buy time for the others to escape." Liam nodded, understanding the risk. "It's a gamble, but it might just work. Let's do it!" Together, they initiated the sequence. Alarms blared as they prepared to initiate the self-destruct. "This is our final stand!" Sarah shouted to the crew, determination in her voice. "We will not go down without a fight!" With the countdown ticking away, they sent out one final message to the remaining ships. "Retreat! We will create a diversion! Get to safety!" As the crew prepared for the end, they felt a sense of unity. They had fought for peace and had given everything to protect their home. In that moment, Sarah realized that they were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the future of the galaxy. As the countdown reached its final seconds, they braced for impact. The flagship erupted in a brilliant explosion, lighting up the void of space and momentarily blinding the Vexari fleet. The shockwave pushed back the Vexari ships, giving the remaining Council vessels a chance to escape. In the chaos, Sarah, Liam, and the remaining crew members were propelled into the unknown. They had fought bravely, but now their fate hung in the balance. Would they survive to continue the fight for peace, or had their final stand sealed their destiny? Only time would tell, but they would face whatever came next with courage and determination.